Hello and welcome to our very first episode. This is Cola and I'm the Community Manager at Circuit International and producer of this podcast. The mission of Circuit International as a New Zealand organisation is really about finding communal solutions for societal well-being. We do this through our humanitarian work connecting Kiwis with communities in Myanmar. Today on the show, we talk with Stu Corlett and Carolyn Enting. It's my great pleasure as Stu is our founder and the drive behind Circuit International, and Carolyn, an awarded New Zealand journalist and the editor of Good magazine, and our newest Circuit International ambassador. I'm excited to hear them talk more about their experiences and share this conversation. Carolyn, Stu, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And same, I'm very excited to be coming on board with Circuit as an ambassador and looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your work with the Good magazine. What do you do and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I'm editor of Good magazine and I've been that for the past 6 years. Good magazine is part of ICG Media, and what I love about it is its ethos, which is well-being for you and well-being for the planet. It's printed on FFC paper with vegetable soy ink, and it cares about sustainable and social issues.
Carolyn, what interests you about our work, the work of Circuit International?
Well, I've always had an interest in social justice and consider myself quite widely travelled. My first trip overseas was at age 5 to South Africa. So from an early age, I was aware that there were people not so fortunate as us in other parts of the world. I've also read about the negative impact that many NGOs have on communities when they're trying to give help, but by giving them money and telling people what to do. And I like that Circuit International takes the opposite approach and provides a hand up and not a handout, as this is a more sustainable approach.
You've been to Myanmar before. Tell me about a highlight of your experience there.
I just loved it. We visited in November 2019 and I just completely fell in love with Myanmar. It's just so extraordinary. It's beautiful. It's mysterious. It's amazing, strangely superstitious, and utterly fascinating. So yeah, I just absolutely loved it. I guess my highlight was visiting Lake Inle, that area, seeing the lotus weavers, the fishermen, the silversmiths, the cigar rollers, and also visiting Shi and Tan. I'm not sure if I've said that correctly. So it's an amazing set of ancient temples clustered together on the lake. Yeah, and what I also found quite interesting was that Lake Inle is in the same area as the Shan District, because it is in the Shan District, isn't it, where Circuit operates. And I wasn't aware of any conflict at the time when I was there.
Yeah, you wouldn't be aware of any conflict because that's sort of more the tourist route. You have to go quite a long way off the beaten track in order to see any of that stuff going on. But interestingly, we have our training farm right on the shores of Inle Lake there. So, and I'm pretty sure you will have seen our land, because if you've been to the winery in Yongshui, you actually overlook our land. So you will have seen the piece of land that we own, and that's where our guys operate from. It's a beautiful place.
Well, actually, I would have seen your land because I did manage to sniff out a winery, and I was amazed that they had one. And we hired a little scooter and we went up there and looked out over that area, and it was so beautiful.
What time of the year did you go? Do you remember?
Yes, November. So
it wouldn't have been too wet. It would have been quite a lovely temperature, not too hot.
It was pretty hot, actually. Yeah. For us anyway.
It's a lot hotter.
Yeah. It was even hotter in Bagan. It was actually the temperature was much nicer in Lake Inle.
Yeah, but in Bagan the temperature is so hot it's almost oppressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, tell me about some of the struggles that you came across while you were there.
Well, I didn't see too many struggles directly, but I did see children working, which made me feel very uncomfortable. We came from Yangon, and I didn't see any children working in Yangon, but we caught the overnight bus from Yangon to Lake Inle because I didn't want to fly, because I'm a nervous flyer and I'd read about Myanmar's flight record. So after that bus trip, we ended up flying from Inle to Bagan. Because it was a pretty amazing, interesting bus ride. But when we arrived really early in the morning and we found this local eatery, we were the only tourists there, and several children were serving our table, which I just found really disconcerting because they were working and they weren't at school.
Yes, a lot of children are not able to go to school. It's just not enough money in the family economy for kids to do that, so they end up working, and a lot of them have quite the hard labour jobs too. You'll find kids sometimes working on the roads, breaking rocks with their parents. It can be a very hard life for people over there. What were the people like in Myanmar?
Well, everybody that we met and sort of dealt with were just so gentle and very happy to see us and very genuine. But you could also see in their faces that life was a struggle for a lot of people.
Yes, it's hard to reconcile the beautiful smiles and the happiness with the conflict that's obviously going on in that country. They've been in civil war for more than 60 years, but when you go as a tourist, you really don't get to see much of that. It's all under the surface. Well,
exactly. I mean, it's funny, before we went, I had a friend say to me, look, I don't think you should go to Myanmar because of its human rights record and what was happening over there with the conflict. And it was a tricky one. We decided still to go. Yeah, what do you do? Do you go or do you not go? I don't know.
Yeah, I think any time you engage with a country that's in this situation, you are faced with a dilemma, because any engagement is putting money into the pockets of people you maybe don't want to have that money. But then at the same time, you also want to bless the people that, you're directly in contact with. And being part of the tourist economy does help the local economy somewhat. But it is a real dilemma, especially for, a conscious, justice-oriented tourist like you.
No, it definitely was. And when we got there, we did realise that, the people were just so happy to see us, and we just really felt we were really conscious about where we spent our money and what we did. And yeah, so I think we did it all right.
Obviously, that was a while back. Why is your heart still connected with Myanmar?
Well, it just completely captured me more than any other place I've actually ever visited, the place and the people. We were only there for 8 days and it just wasn't long enough, and we intended to return in 2020, but then of course the pandemic happened.
Yes, and that's affected me too, because I usually would have been travelling to Myanmar, meeting with my team over there several times over the last couple of years, but I've been isolated and having to do everything from a distance by remote control. We talk using the incredible technology that we've got available today, but it's not the same as being with somebody and giving them a hug and holding their hand and looking them in the eye. It's just not the same, is it?
So, Stu, what was your motivating factor for starting Circuit International in the first place, and what are you trying to do?
I lived in northern Thailand for 15 years and I saw a lot of refugees coming in from Myanmar, had some personal friends, and we started working in the development area in 2007. But it wasn't until 2012 that really big brick hit me in the forehead. I was travelling through Shan State, Northeastern Myanmar, with a couple of Buddhist monks, and we met a family and I witnessed them selling their daughter in front of me, and it broke my heart. And tears were streaming down my face. And the monk grabbed me by the arm quite firmly and he said to me, "What are you crying for?" He said, "This is normal." And it was then that we realized the depth of the situation in that part of the world. People were so desperate to survive that the kids were volunteering to go and work in these very dangerous situations, and mum and dad allowed it to happen because they had nothing to survive on. And ultimately that was caused by very high debts caused by loans that were given by loan sharks at very high interest rates. And that's what got these families into trouble. And so the team and I started working and thinking, how can we resolve this? And that's what really began Circuit as it was, and that really was established as it currently is in 2015. But we've been going since 2007.
Wow, it's really sobering to hear that story, and amazing the work that you're actually doing. Can you tell me a bit more about how you operate and Circuit's projects and how they're making a difference?
Sure. Well, one of the keys to what we do is that we engage the whole community. So we don't single out individuals and try and help them out. Southeast Asian society is very communal. And so it's really important that everybody is involved together. So we will approach a whole community and say, hey, we'd like to do something to help you out, to solve this problem that you've got. And to do that, we'd like you to form a committee, and you guys need to learn to manage and run this whole project yourself. So we don't go in and start a project and make them work to it. We say to them, we'd like to give you a loan in order for you to start a project that you run and you own from the very beginning. And so the whole community will get together. They'll take some time, sometimes 1 or maybe even 2 years before they get themselves sorted out. Bearing in mind they're in a conflict zone, so people have been fighting for years, and it's very difficult to trust other people. So getting the whole community to come together around this potential for a project that will free them pulls everybody together, and this is what we call community development. Development is not about just doing a project. Development is about people developing. It's about a community developing and growing together. And so what happens is the community comes together and they start to work around this common goal. We're going to take this loan. We're going to plant our crops out. We're going to make sure it's paid back every year, and then we're going to borrow it every year. And we're going to make sure that this is done well so that we no longer have to take money from these really bad guys who are stripping us of all of our resources and putting our families at great risk. So that's kind of how we work. We go in and we usually provide a loan of a significant chunk of money, usually about 6,000 New Zealand dollars to start with, and that's enough to get the community going on this project. And then they go out, they plant, they buy the seed and fertilizer to plant their land, they get going, and then everybody holds each other accountable.
Well, that's amazing. And I understand that you also have a very low interest rate as part of this program, and then it gets saved and put aside.
Yes, well, it's not good to just give people money. It's important that people feel that they are working for their progress. So one of the things we do is we give them the right to choose their interest rate. And we say to them, whatever interest that you pay, we will keep aside in a bank account. And this won't be money that our organisation uses. This is going to be money that is stored and kept aside for your community. And so at the end of a cycle, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, depending on how long it takes, hopefully there's a nice big lump of change in a bank account there for that community to then take and use to establish a bank again for them. Then we take the original money and we give that to a whole new community. So whenever, I like to say it like this to people, when people give $6,000 or when we get $6,000 together, it actually becomes worth well over $40,000 over the life cycle of a project. And I think that's a very sustainable way to do development.
And when they have a good harvest as well, their profits, that's really encouraging. And I know the year before it wasn't going so well for them. But this year it was a real success for the whole team over there, wasn't it? Yes,
this year's been a lot better. We had 2 years of real struggle in terms of grain prices. But this year has been a really good year. And this is quite common in agriculture. If you talk to any farmers in New Zealand, they'll tell you there are good years and bad years. And you have to store money away from the good years to cope with, to offset the bad years that are potentially coming. But this is the life of farmers. And, farmers are just incredible the way that they are so resilient, both in New Zealand and in other countries like Myanmar.
Well, it definitely is a country of contrasts, and obviously, is quite an authoritarian state with quite a violent history. And obviously recently the military coup happened in February. How does Circuit navigate this through its operations?
Well, one of the most important things for us is that we have to be apolitical. We try and keep right out of politics, and we try not to say too much about the situation. Our focus is bang on the community. We are looking for those communities that are open to us coming and working with them, and our team connects with them, builds a really strong relationship of trust, and that's how we get things done. We try to keep out of the bigger picture of the Myanmar politics. It's tough.
So yes, it is really tough. Can you talk or speak to some of the success projects? I know the other day when we were chatting, you were telling me about watermelons.
Yes, well, when you're a poor farmer, having water is a luxury. You don't have irrigation, you're very reliant on the seasons. But if you were to have a more expensive cash crop, something like watermelons, it would mean that you've actually got some infrastructure in place that's allowed you to plant these and transport them, get them to market. So most of the farmers that we work with, they don't even have land that you could plant rice on because they're in the hills. And so that's why yellow corn or maize is the crop of choice. It grows and then it's dried and then it gets to the market pretty easily. It's either that or opium. We have a big problem with opium growing in Shan State in Northeastern Myanmar. And it's because they're looking for crops that are easy to grow but bring a really good cash return. Watermelons are something that would be an incredible crop to happen because you get a lot of money from them, but it would require an incredible amount of water and resource to get them to market, especially if you're going to sell them freshly. But one of our key programs, one of the very first ones that we started with, are now growing watermelons. So they've gone all the way through several cycles, and they've gone from planting just yellow corn and barely getting by to having a little bit more money and a bit more resource, and then slowly they can start to envision what they want to do. And so that, they're selling watermelons now. And if you have a look at the front page of our website, circuitinternational.org, you'll see this beautiful beaming picture of this woman holding a watermelon. And when I first started in that community, they were so down, their shoulders were just so deeply dropped that they were going to lose everything. And today they stand tall and strong, and they're really moving ahead. And that community has taken all the interest that they're earning. They're actually using that a little bit differently. They've started a development centre in their community, and that's their dream, is to have a centre where everybody can come and be resourced and trained, and it's a real progress in the community.
Carolyn, I thought, this is really great because as our Circuit International ambassador, you have a clear sense of purpose. You're serving conscious consumers here in New Zealand, sharing uplifting ways to live. You're close to this work. You support sustainable and social enterprise, and you cover this a lot in your editorial. And I guess hearing how we're making a difference, how do you think we can all make a difference? What's the impact that you're seeing?
I think having awareness straight up is the most important thing, and it surrounds sort of education. I think it helps if you've been travelled. Obviously, we can't do that right now, but the borders are opening soon, which is exciting. I'll be interested to know how you can become involved with Circuit and with the ways people can actually get involved, because I think it'd be good for you to speak to that, Stu. From a personal perspective, my way is writing about these issues and getting them out into magazines and online so that people actually have awareness of what's going on around the world and hopefully touch their hearts, and then they can choose which way they want to get involved, whether that's as a volunteer. Obviously, you've got to be careful about volunteerism because you don't want to be doing more harm than good. Whether you can support through donations or buying a gift for somebody, that's sort of areas where I feel like we can help.
I'm of the firm belief that we all have something to offer, but it might not be necessarily what I think is the right thing, but you might have an idea of some way that you can help us. And there might be listeners out there who are thinking, I've got this idea, of how I could help this organisation, well, we'd love to hear from you. There's not a cookie cutter sort of thing out there. I think we're humans are amazing in our resourcefulness and the creativity that's in us from who we are, who we are created to be. And so I think it's important that all the creativity of listeners and people who want to get involved is employed. Obviously, there are things you can do, like you can buy our Christmas cards, you can support us with money, you can listen to our podcast, you can tell other people about what we're doing and spread the message. There's all sorts of ways that you can be involved. In terms of being on the ground in Myanmar, we really strongly avoid white faces being in place. There's something about being a foreigner or a Westerner that carries with it so much privilege. And when you walk into a situation, it's so easy to swing a situation in a different direction to where it really needs to go. So we try to let the locals lead and guide, and we try to stand back as far as possible. Now, if you do want to go to Myanmar, I'd encourage you, when it finally opens up, which may be a long time away, but by all means go and enjoy. But we probably can't take you to the projects. That might actually cause a little bit more damage than good. But in terms of involvement, invite us along to come and speak at your groups. If you've got a community group or a group of people who are interested in this thing, I'm very happy to come out and see you. I'll travel anywhere in the country to do it.
I think the work of our help is really to empower others, who are like us. I think that's really the connection here. They're just facing over in Myanmar far greater challenges to survive, just to feed their families. And they want to be self-sufficient, to earn and to thrive and to contribute. And so the communities that we support in war-torn Myanmar are up against, real corruption and the threat of violence, the violation of human rights, poverty, human trafficking, and the gross displacement of people, land and resources. That's not just a problem in Myanmar, but all over the planet. So, this community and love in action is really powerful and empowering.
Carolyn, I have a question for you because I think you're probably more aware of this terminology than I am. But, let's dig in a little bit deeper. What does it mean to be conscious as we're looking at development? What does it mean to be a conscious consumer? And how does that affect our interaction with a situation like this difficult country of Myanmar?
When people ask me that question, I say being a conscious consumer means you actually really care deeply about the world. You care about humanity. You care about the planet. You care about animal welfare, the lungs of our earth. And so every decision you make in your life, whether that's what you purchase, how you relate to other people, what you do in your work, you can make decisions every day consciously to live better. And that's what drives me at Good Magazine, the power of the pen to bring these conscious ideas to people. And we don't do that in a preachy way. We do it in a lifting way. We say, hey, here's a really great idea, because there's so much fear out there at the moment in the world, and people are feeling really bogged down by a lot of stuff, especially with the climate change conversations, situation in Myanmar currently. It can be really, really heavy. So I'm really optimistic, and I really believe in the consciousness of humanity as a whole. And I think that there are definitely more good people versus selfish people in the world, and that most of us want to see the world thrive. And if we can help, we will. And it's just a matter of finding out ways that you can. And that lights me up every day.
It strikes me that another word for conscious might be loving, just simply acting in loving ways. It's interesting, the motto that we have for our organisation in Myanmar is love changes everything. And we really believe that the team in Myanmar is capable of spreading love into these communities, and that's what draws the communities together in development. So, call it consciousness, call it love. It's just, it's doing the right thing, isn't it?
I totally agree.
In closing, we definitely give thanks to our incredible community of generous, everyday New Zealanders who donate to our organisation, and also to our incredible, courageous team of workers and Kiwi and Burmese volunteers.
Oh, they're amazing.
You know, I also want to thank you both so much, Stu, Caro. It's been such a pleasure and so interesting, and we look forward to following your travels when the borders open again.
So am I.
Carolyn, it's been lovely to spend some time with you. You're a beautiful soul. And it's a privilege to have you working with us. Really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you. And I feel exactly the same way back at you guys. So I'm very excited to come on board as a Circuit International Ambassador. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn has also kindly given us a Good Magazine subscription. So if you haven't joined us yet, just head along to the website, circuitinternational.org, and you can sign up there and win a year of these beautiful editions from Good Magazine. We'll also post links to where you can find Good and Carolyn online in the descriptions below this episode on the podcast. To learn more about Circuit's work and everything we do, visit us on our site, circuitinternational.org, and follow us on social. There are many ways you can donate and join our community. You can purchase our new Christmas gift cards and plant hope in communities in Myanmar. We'll be back with episode 2 in the new year. Take care, with love from all of us at Circuit International.